Hello gentlemen, nice
Hello,
to
Ian.
see you again.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
You'll notice some changes here, Ian, since the last time you're here.
Yes, I'm amazed how small it looks now.
Yeah, it's really, the trees have grown so much they've come in quite a bit.
Stuart Campbell's dismissal relies on his belief that labourers at the reservoir works a quarter of a mile away illegally stored pipes in the clearing and then lied about it to cover themselves. But Stuart MacDonald and Ian Wark don't think that proposition stands scrutiny.
Well, I certainly can't recall pipes being stored here. I couldn't categorically say that they weren't stored here, but I've no recollection of that. And what I would say though is the marks on the ground weren't consistent with pipes having been laid there. They were smaller marks and quite precise marks and not consistent with pipes having been laid on the ground.
I would say that on the morning I examined the site here, the vegetation was green, and I believe that if pipes had been lying on the ground for any length of time, it would have turned the vegetation into a yellow colour. So I would definitely say no, these marks were definitely not made by pipes.
What about the circular holes left by Stuart Campbell's pickaxes, levering up illicitly stacked water pipes?
The diameter of these holes in the ground were approximately 3 inches. They would have to be really big picks, and they were all going in at the same angle, right round these tracks, which we first of all thought were caterpillar tracks.
Stuart Campbell's scepticism is based on the fact that we can't know for sure that the tracks at the site and the damage to Bob Taylor's trousers and long johns weren't present before he apparently stumbled across the alien spacecraft. Neither can Stuart Campbell prove that they were. But his main target isn't the physical evidence at all, but Bob Taylor himself and his loss of consciousness.
He was out for 20 minutes. He also complained of he had some peculiar symptoms. The strong odour that he experienced, very acrid odour. He lost his voice after he came round, after the 20 minutes. He couldn't stand. He had paralysis in his legs. His mouth was dry and he had a headache. The medical person I consulted, my medical colleague, was quite satisfied that the whole experience was explained as an epileptic fit. Something had happened spontaneously to him. However, he was prone to it due to his previous meningitis. He was predisposed to have a fit. And if he'd had not had meningitis, this wouldn't have happened to him.
Had you ever had a fit before?
Never. No.
Have you had a fit since?
Not at all.
One would have expected more than one attack, certainly. And if the meningitis was it 9 years previously? There would have been surely to have been attacks of trouble in the 9 years between the original meningitis and this event which occurred.
Today, Bob Taylor is happy for his family doctor to confirm the absence of any fits. Yet Stuart Campbell seems driven to explain how Bob got what happened to him so very wrong.
I was looking at a lot of other UFO reports, mainly from other parts of the world, and I was finding that in most cases I could find an astronomical object, usually one of the bright planets, a naked eye planets, or a very bright star, that was just where the observer said they saw something. In desperation, one day I decided to see if it had any relevance to the Livingston event. And I was most surprised to find that there was indeed a very bright object near the horizon in Robert Taylor's line of sight. In fact, in the direction which he was looking. And that object was Venus, the brightest planet that you can see.
Stuart Campbell not only proposes that Bob Taylor had an epileptic fit, but also specifically asserts that the fit was brought on by a shimmering and dramatically enlarged image of Venus, which he describes as an astronomical mirage.
You'll have all seen an inferior mirage on a hot road in summer. Look, it's not looking like water on the road, it's actually the sky reflected. And that's an important aspect because mirages do involve reflections. But not many people know that you get reflections in the sky. They're called superior mirages.
Stuart Campbell argues that a reflective layer can form in the atmosphere as a result of temperature inversion, warm air above colder air. This reflective layer acts like a mirror or lens, magnifying an astronomical image, in this case Venus, and then reflecting it to the ground.
When it's an astronomical object, this is one I call the AMH, because the object in question turns out to be an astronomical object, which is probably very low on the horizon. It can even be below the horizon, but you're seeing it because it's being refracted and reflected through the atmosphere around the Earth.
Stuart Campbell acknowledges that the astronomical mirage hypothesis is his own brainchild, not yet in the textbooks. The Glasgow Science Centre at Pacific Quay has a planetarium which aims to engage people with the excitement of deep space. We wondered if the astronomical mirage hypothesis would stand up to scrutiny by visiting astronomer Terry Moseley and planetarium scientist Mario DiMaggio.
Hi Mario,
Terry,
good to see you.
Yes, do come in.
Thanks very much. Right, so Terry, here we have the position of the Sun, Venus and Mercury as seen from Livingston by Bob Taylor in 1979. Yes, that's correct. Those positions are absolutely right. The difference is, of course, that what he saw was the real sky, which was very, very much more bright, and in fact Venus would simply not have been visible. It's too faint and too low down, and you have a bright sun in the sky, and it would not have been visible under those circumstances.
Terry Moseley has grave doubts. First, that Venus was in a position to generate much light at all that morning in November 1979.
Well, Venus is actually, in theory, visible in daylight, but only when it's at maximum brightness, only when it's high up in the sky, and only when it's at its maximum elongation distance from the Sun. And that did not apply in this case. It was low down, it was less than half its normal brightness, and it was quite close to the Sun. So that would make it, in my view, almost impossible, if not totally impossible, to see it, simply because of the brightness of the daylight sky. The Sun would have been 6.3 billion times brighter than Venus. So you simply do not see Venus in the daytime sky in those conditions.
But even if Venus had been in the right place at the right time, Terry Moseley doesn't care much for the astronomical mirage hypothesis itself.
I think the atmospheric conditions that could give rise to that are so remote as to be, to all intents and purposes, impossible. It would require basically a gigantic lens in the sky at approximately the right time and the right place, and that just has never happened. I have never heard of any phenomenon being reported anything like that.
The council put up a plaque to mark the site of Bob Taylor's experience. The plaque was stolen so often, they stopped replacing it. The idea of an alien craft landing in West Lothian is certainly challenging. But is the alternative explanation any easier to swallow? An astronomical mirage phenomenon that has never been observed, which induced a once-in-a-lifetime epileptic fit, possibly unique to medicine.
I find an explanation. You might find it hard to believe, but it looks like the best explanation, and the best explanation, when you haven't got any others, looks like the right one.
I honestly believe that what Robert Taylor saw that morning on November the 9th, 1979, was as he depicted it. This dome-shaped object with a flange going around it, with cross-light projections on a flange. What that object was, I haven't a clue.
At the end of the day, we treated this as an assault on Bob Taylor in the forest. Today we have been unable to come up with any arrests, charge anybody with anything, and we are still, the police, although I've retired now, the police are still, should be investigating this crime.
I think the culprit may have flown.
I think he might have flown somewhere.
I don't really know. It's a thing that happened, and it was very mysterious.